Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cardano Live. I have Phil Lewis with us today. He's the co-founder of Empower, and he's been working on a lot of different projects on Project Catalyst. Voting ends tomorrow on June 25th at about 11 a.m. Universal Time Code, 11 a.m. UTC. So make sure you get out your Catalyst apps on your mobile devices and vote. And Phil's here to tell some really cool stuff today. Couple of different topics that we'll be talking about, and that is the DARP project that he's working on Project Catalyst, the NFT DAO, and also a little bit about Empower, but there'll be more about Empower later on to follow on later podcasts and YouTube videos coming out from Phil's team. So Phil, thank you for coming on Cardano Live. I greatly appreciate it. How are you doing today, sir?
Good. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
All right. And so can you tell the viewers here a little bit about yourself so they know who you are? You've been around,
Sure.
you're in the ecosystem a lot. Let them know who you are, and then we'll get talking about the DART part first.
Yeah, so I've been kind of pottering around in the Cardano community since about 2018. You've probably seen me pop up on the forum and in a few other chats. I got involved quite early in the Yorgamander testnet. You know, the pre ITN when you had to build everything manually. It was interesting times. I've worked in IT for over 20 years. Most recently, I've been building quite large-scale SaaS platforms in different industries, predominantly education. The type of applications that kind of service hundreds of thousands of people. So, you know, pretty big software applications. My interest, I suppose, in what I want to talk about today around NFT standards and the decentralized identity solutions is something that is important for the journey that we want to go on with Empower. And that's, I guess, why I kind of kickstarted these conversations in the community and on Catalyst. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Yeah, thank you for that, Phil. And Phil, prior to the podcast, we talked about, he had three main topics to talk about. And the first one is DARP. So can you tell us what is ARP? What does that mean? And then how does it work on Ethereum? And what are your plans for Cardano? So what is ARP? How does that work?
So the DARP project is, it stands for the Decentralized Address Resolution Protocol. And essentially, it's similar to, if people are familiar with the Ethereum name service or the unstoppable domains on Ethereum. And I guess to explain it quite simply, I think of it like DNS. So the domain name system, people are probably familiar with it, converts a domain name to an IP address so that you can browse the web and things like that. So this is quite similar, but instead of converting names to IP addresses, it'll convert names to crypto wallet addresses or any other kind of address, to be honest. I know that Unstoppable Domains and the Ethereum name service, they focus on crypto addresses, but the proposal that I put in was suggesting that we could use this to resolve any address. You could resolve your postal address, you could resolve a GPS location, anything you can think of, because it's just a resolution service. So whatever you want people to know about, then you can have it resolved to.
Okay. All right. So just to cover this with the basics for myself and for the viewers as well, is address resolution is, for example, when I type a URL that's very easy to remember, like cardano.org or iohk.io, when I type that in, it finds the servers for me where the data is coming from. So it goes and looks up an IP address, right? And then it returns that IP address so it can actually get the data inside my web browser. And the DART project you're working on will do the same thing. It'll make easily readable human addresses and translate that to all the complex cryptography to find the data you're looking for. That's the general idea, right?
Yeah, essentially. So instead of having to, find and remember or copy and paste a complex crypto address, you can just put, Rick's.address. And if a developer wants to have an application that supports this capability, then they would have to obviously connect to a service that provides this resolution, so that the end user gets a very simple experience. But it's one of the questions that came up during Catalyst was why I actually put it in the developer ecosystem challenge. And there were two main reasons for this. One was obviously to help developers build apps that give users a better experience. But the other reason as well is that working with smart contracts when they come on Cardano can actually be quite difficult in certainly this what's being experienced in the Ethereum world at the moment. People, if they want to upgrade their app because they want to change their smart contract, well, smart contracts are permanent. So once you've written it to the blockchain, you've got to write a new version. So you've then got to change your application to point to that new version. So by using this resolution service, you won't actually have to redeploy your application with the new address of the smart contract. You can just change the resolution, and your application is automatically then pointing at the new smart contract. So there are a few questions about that on Catalyst and why it was considered a developer tool, and that's kind of the main reason why I think it's probably better suited to that challenge than a DApp itself. It's not really a DApp itself.
Okay, so this has a lot of use and functionality that it will bring to Cardano by having that capability. One of the core things is it's on IdeaScale right now under DARP, DARP, available for voting in the Catalyst app at this time, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So look, I mean, I just probably also want to touch on a few of the comments and reviews that got put through on Catalyst. It didn't score particularly high. I was a bit disappointed actually with the I guess the review process that the Catalyst is going through. And look, I mean, I realize that it's an iterative process. We're trying to improve Catalyst fund by fund. But I think there are still a few people, because of the competitive nature around trying to get funds, that are, I guess, trying to push other proposals down that might be competing. And I would have liked to have seen, I guess, the review process try to weed some of those out a little bit better. I didn't think that happened particularly well this time, but I think it's just only going to get better from fund to fund. So, mine didn't get score very well because it was getting some criticism about it not being in the right challenge. But I think, hopefully I've explained why it's in the challenge it's in, and hopefully people who are looking at those reviews will say, okay, I understand his reasoning, and hopefully not consider the people who reviewed it negatively the same way.
Okay. And equally as important is that voters actually vote with their stake. One of the trade-offs, you got to take the bad with the good. One of the trade-offs is if you have a competitor with big bags, they can downvote your proposal. So I don't know how you deal with that. It's just too complicated. Hopefully the game theorists got that all figured out, and hopefully people are voting honestly, and you don't just have the competitors with the biggest bags squashing projects and then they steal the idea and then rebuild it, because that is a definite possibility and could happen. Maybe it's happening. I don't know, but it's fair to say, you got to say it out loud, right? You got a crazy uncle in the attic and say, hey, I got a crazy uncle in the attic, he's up there making noise. But, fair enough. So it's good that you come on the podcast, let people know what the project actually does, the challenges you've been through with getting it, reviewed, and hopefully, we'll just keep getting better and better as time goes on. We'll definitely get better.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably worth just touching on the approach that I'm wanting to take, because obviously I'm proposing a very different approach to how it's currently done on Ethereum. So obviously at the moment with Ethereum, everything has to be written through a smart contract. So, you're paying gas and it becomes costly. Obviously we're quite fortunate with Cardano that we can write metadata without having to use smart contracts. So the suggestion that I've made with this proposal is that we leverage the building blocks that IOHK are putting in place with their Atala Prism solution. So they're introducing decentralized identifiers, and this is a standard that's been put out by the W3C. It's not something unique to IOHK's solution. So what I'm suggesting is that we take that technology to build on top of the decentralized identifiers, or DIDs, and actually use that to point to the resolution document that would actually resolve these names. And so part of that process would be registering your name in the same way as you might register a DNS, but you're registering it in a decentralized way through a registrar that could be anybody who wants to host this service. So it could be a stake pool operator like yourself, Rick, who wants to add some value add service over and above being a stake pool, to use your server resources to provide an additional service layer to the Cardano community. And so it will allow someone to register their name on the blockchain, and then there's essentially a hash or a proof that they're the ones who've registered it. And then when they list their names that they want to have resolved, like Rick's.address might resolve to an ADA address of, all those letters and numbers, or you might have a Bitcoin address as well, or an Ethereum address. That document, that resolution document, will then get hashed back onto your decentralized identifier as well, so that everybody can actually do a proof, or the applications that want to use your name can see the proof that you are the owner of it on the blockchain.
Okay, yes, it does. And this is good news for many reasons. Number one, I've always been a big fan of Cardano is designed correctly. There's a lot of things that were done right that were not done well, but lessons have been learned from other blockchains. And number two is Cardano needs a simple way to identify if Alice wants to send money to Bob, Alice needs to be able to click on a Bob wallet, and that money gets to Bob, the correct Bob, right? And so does this technology enable Alice the ability to send money to Bob by clicking on Bob? Is that something we'll eventually see come to fruition, maybe?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a case of Alice knowing what Bob's address is. So if Bob's address through this resolution service is just Bob's.address, then Alice can put Bob's.address into a wallet that supports this resolution service. The wallet will go away and get the resolution and get the proofs of the owner of that address as well, to make sure that it is actually resolving to the correct address. And then it will return back Bob's address, and then Alice can then just send the funds.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to see that technology deploying. I'll make one that says tacosforrick.ada, and I'll post it down below in the description so people can send me taco money.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, I mean, this is quite a popular idea. I mean, we've actually got 3 or 4 other proposals in idea scale of a similar nature. So everybody knows that it's a needed service in the Cardano community. I'd like to think that my approach is slightly novel, and the fact that it's taking a different approach to all the others that are just essentially replicating Ethereum's approach. I want to take advantage of the work that IOHK have done around the decentralized identifiers. I mean, your address is a form of your identity, I suppose, in a way. So it seems like a logical fit in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, identities nowadays seem to be an accumulation of social media accounts, combined with your private information that you don't want anybody else to have. Things like date of birth, social security number, certain numbers and characteristics that are associated with an identity. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting approach you're taking here. So DARP, the Decentralized Address Resolution Protocol, and that's the Project Catalyst proposal.
Yeah. And look, there's some links in the proposal to some documentation that I've started compiling about breaking it down into a bit more technical, exactly how it would work. And so, yeah, look, I mean, even if it doesn't get funded this time, it's something that I'm still going to pursue. I think it's, something worthwhile. I've been in touch with the IOHK product manager for Atala Prism, just to, I guess, kickstart being able to take advantage of some of the capabilities that they're building out already. So it will happen, obviously, if I don't get funded, it'll take longer, but that's just the way it goes.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing you have IT experience because you know how that stuff works, you know, and it does take time. It takes time to build large IT systems. It just takes time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this capability being deployed on Cardano. That's fantastic stuff. Now, for the viewers, I have links down below in the description. I have a link to the website. I think I have a link to DARP, but I need to put the link that you just told me about. So the DARP website, docs.darp.tech, down below in the description. I do not have the link to the idea scale
Catalyst.
proposal right
Okay.
on Catalyst. I don't have the idea scale, but I do have the idea scale for NFT DAO down in the description. So I'll add the DARP one after we're done here. And did you have anything else on DARP? Because you're also going to hit on the NFT DAO as well, where we're at.
No, look, I think unless you've got any other questions about the decentralized address resolution protocol, you know, hopefully it's fairly simple to understand the value that it brings, and the approach building on top of Atala Prism's capabilities is, you know, hopefully something that people would like to see happen. So yeah, look, I'm happy to move on to the NFT DAO proposal.
If any viewer questions come up, we will send those over to Phil. We'll get them live on the air, get your questions answered. So Phil's going to talk next about the NFT DAO. What do you got for the NFT DAO? There's a little bit of controversy of it, but that's okay because, you know, good things take effort. You know, nothing good comes easy. And so, what do you got on the NFT DAO, Phil?
So look, I mean, just on the controversy that's been happening recently, you know, I unfortunately haven't really, well, not unfortunately, I haven't been involved. I'm unfortunate that being in Perth, I'm in a terrible time zone when it comes to attending meetings and what have you. And most of the NFT DAO meetings are happening while I'm asleep. So I kind of missed a lot of the controversy that was happening. But look, I really thought that the idea that was being put forward for NFT DAO was a really good one. It made sense to build a framework that lots of different projects could leverage, because there are so many common elements to building a platform for NFTs. So it kind of made sense to me. But my main focus within NFT DAO is around NFT standards. So I and I guess many people believe that standards are important. I guess one of the examples that I gave in the proposal was comparing it to standards like Wi-Fi or HTML. And, you know, until those kind of standards came along, there were so many different versions of these things, and people didn't know which one they were working with. And, you know, businesses need standards because they need to know that they're not going to incur future cost if something changes. They need to have some predictability. So if NFTs are going to go mainstream with corporate businesses, then they're going to be waiting for these kind of standards to come out. So the proposal that I put in was to actually have NFT DAO, and, you know, look, if NFT DAO doesn't survive the recent controversy, I'm sure something similar, a similar group, Cardano group, will emerge around dealing with NFTs for the Cardano community. And it made sense for that group to have a representation on some NFT standards groups, the industry groups that are already forming. So the first one is a group called the Interwork Alliance. Now, you can probably put some links to that at some point on the description as well. So the Interwork Alliance, some of the members at the moment, we're talking about Microsoft, Accenture, Chainlink. So there's quite a few well-known names who are part of that working group. And the approach that they're taking around NFT standards is actually to define metadata standards for particular business industries. So think ticketing or art, or another example they give is carbon credits. So, you know, these are standards that they want to have adopted that would be the same regardless of what blockchain the NFT lives on. So that if you want to read that NFT, you know how to read it regardless of which blockchain it lives on. Okay,
so I'm glad you pointed that out. So the question to help both myself and the viewers understand, where the problem lies with not having standards is that on Cardano, you can put metadata without a smart contract, which is brilliant. Now, the problem is that metadata can be anything. For example, someone told a story. They wrote a story, and it's basically a big blob of text formatted as metadata, right? And I put some metadata out there that just says we are going for number one, okay? But not if a computer reads that data, it just sees a blob of text. Okay, here's the metadata. Here's a blob of text. So what you're proposing is that the metadata contains certain characteristics, like is this an art NFT? Is this an identity NFT? Is this an insurance policy, or what is this NFT? Is it a real estate or contract? So it has to have a characteristic, and then it has to have certain minimum required pieces of data.
Correct.
That way, no matter who reads it, they know what they're looking at. Is that what you're getting at with this?
So yeah, I mean, if you want to represent real estate on an NFT, that's going to have different information stored about it than a piece of art, which is going to have different information stored about it than a ticket or a carbon credit. So it's about defining what information needs to be stored in the NFT in a predictable structure, so that when you're reading the data in that structure, as you said, it's not just a blob of text that you don't actually understand what it means, or the computer doesn't understand what it means.
Wow.
So that's it's great. I mean, that's what the Interwork Alliance are pushing forward. Obviously, it's very early days in NFT, and there may be other standards groups that will emerge that might want to compete. But certainly with names like Microsoft and Chainlink and some big players like that, it may well be that it's the industry groups with the big names are usually the ones that win out, because they get the attention of the big corporates that are interested in these standards anyway. So
yeah, they have reach, advertising, marketing, and trust. People look at it and they go, "Oh, well, I know who Microsoft is. I'll use that. I know who Google is. I'll use that." Right? But yeah. And so meanwhile, you do all the hard work and get your hands dirty. It's true.
Yeah, exactly. So look, I mean, that working group is just working on the structure for the information that the different industries need. Now, there's also another working group called NFT, and they're actually looking at it more from a technical structure. So regardless of what data is inside the NFT for different types of NFT, how would we actually represent this so that it can be read from any blockchain? So that's now getting into the technical implementation. And the group that's formed, the proposal that they're actually putting forward, funnily enough, and kind of ties back into the last topic, is they're actually talking about using decentralized identifiers again. So the W3C standard for DIDs. So they're suggesting that format is used as a standard format for all NFTs on all blockchains. And then in theory, you could move an NFT from one blockchain to another. Sounds crazy, but that's what they're proposing. So the proposal that I put in for Catalyst through NFT DAO was the first. It was the first of two proposals around getting involved in industry standards. The first one was to join the Interwork Alliance. So they have a membership fee for an organization the size of NFT DAO. It was a $5,000 fee for the year. But with that, we get to contribute to the discussion around those standards and how they will be formed. But also, and probably more important, is we get the option of having the framework certified as complying with that standard. And that's great if anyone wants to build using the NFT DAO framework and it's been certified by the standards group, then they have confidence that it's going to be compliant with those standards.
Okay. Do you know if like the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, are they looking at things like blockchain? Do you think it'll eventually get to that point?
Well, I think the decentralized identifiers, because it's part of self-sovereign identity, which relies on a blockchain to be able to deliver that capability, or some kind of decentralized ledger technology. They are in a way contributing to the conversation, but not necessarily on the underlying technology that, how the blockchain operates. It's more just the next layer up about what gets written onto that blockchain.
Okay. I got kind of a weird off the wall question just popped into my head. You don't have to answer this. I'm just going to kind of throw this out there. Is it possible to post the standard on the Cardano blockchain? For example, let's say there's something on Ethereum wants to read chain link data on Cardano. Can an NFT be posted that says, hey, this is the format that you're going to get? And then it can read that format, whatever the latest standard is, and say, oh, this is how that data is formatted. Then then it can read and understand it. Like maybe an Oracle is looking for that data. Is it possible to do something like that where the latest standard is on chain?
So most of these metadata standards, they start, the first entry at the very top actually refers to the schema that it's using. So it's a URL that you can actually go away and look at the schema of the metadata structure, so that the machine can actually understand what it's reading.
Okay.
So that schema can be stored. I mean, at the moment it's just a web URL, but there's no reason why it couldn't be stored on the blockchain as well.
Okay. Yeah, or
and
URL.
that defines it. Yeah, okay. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That way, if 5 years from now the standard updates, you don't have to go reconfigure everything. You can just change the reference, and then it'll understand what the metadata format is.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
maybe even be reverse compatible. Who knows?
So look, the last meeting that I attended for the Inter NFT group, and interestingly, the Inter NFT group, who are kind of looking at it more from a technical perspective, they're actually in talks with the Interwork Alliance about maybe bringing their standard into the Interwork Alliance, and it just be another stream as part of that group. So combining the two standards groups, which would be great, because I think that just means that you're not having to deal with two different standards groups with potential conflicts. But the last meeting I attended, they actually went through how this might work and to what they would need to do to move a CryptoKitty off Ethereum onto another blockchain. And it was fantastic. The idea of how they would convert how it's currently stored on Ethereum into this standard structure so that it could then be read on any other blockchain.
Wow,
so definitely suggest people have a look at that video. It's on their Inter NFTs YouTube channel if they want to have a look.
Okay, you gave me the link in Telegram. I'm going to put that down below. I'm going to make note. Put that link down there. The Inter NFT video.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got to type and talk at the same time. I'm not very good at it.
And look, I mean, one of the videos that I did link to in the Catalyst proposal was an NFT DAO standards meeting that myself and Stephen, who I think you had on your Digital Fortress show on the weekend. So we actually were talking about the proposal and what the benefits would be. So basically what we've just been talking about now with the two different standards groups. So if people want to watch that video, that's on the NFT DAO's YouTube channel, and that goes into a lot more detail about why we would benefit from maybe adopting some of these industry standards.
Okay, so there's standards out there, like Ethereum's already worked through a lot of it, and so learn from that, right? And apply to Cardano, make it better, or make it compatible in some ways.
Yeah. So, I mean the Ethereum standard is quite, so the 721 ERC 721 standard is quite light on as far as it tries not to be too prescriptive. So it talks about some minimum requirements that you would need for an NFT, but it assumes that different NFTs are going to have different requirements, so it doesn't try to be prescriptive in that way. Now, obviously, the Interwork Alliance, they want to be prescriptive. They want to say, if you want to represent a carbon credit as an NFT so that you can trade carbon credits, then the NFT has to follow this format. Otherwise, it's not a valid carbon credit NFT recognized by the United Nations or something like that.
Okay. All right, man, that's really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
you could put anything in an NFT. Like carbon credits are a big deal. I don't myself buy or use carbon credits, but I think the people that do will be able to trade them. I just remember, back a long time ago, things like moving large quantities of oil, they have certificates and stuff like that, in their bills of lading saying I can move this much stuff. Like those certificates can be put on the blockchain. Hey, this is my bill of lading. It verifies that I'm moving this much oil or this much electromechanical products or something like that. So those can also be NFTs on the blockchain. And it would be a good idea if you're tracking them that your computer systems can read it and understand what it's looking at.
Exactly.
That's cool stuff, man.
Yeah.
Hey, there was if there's any viewer questions, let me know in the chat. Thank you everyone for your comments. I appreciate it. There's a question just came up from Snowman, and so we're getting into the details of NFTs. And Phil, since you're an expert, maybe you can answer this question. Snowman asks, so if I want to sell my house to an ETH holder, this how it would work, right? So like, let's say you're an ADA holder, you got the ADA NFT, someone's an ETH holder, you want to make the sale,
So, look, I mean, representing ownership or title of houses as NFTs is certainly an achievable thing. I mean, at the end of the day, what you can put on an NFT is no different from what you can put on a piece of paper, which is, a title deed. The challenge at the moment with things like that is getting laws in different jurisdictions to recognize that NFT as a legally binding thing. And so look, it will happen. Obviously it's going to take time as more and more jurisdictions recognize artifacts on blockchains as legally binding artifacts. So probably not yet to that person. I think we're a little way off, but certainly in the future, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like right now, there's a lot of registrar offices, tax offices, and like in my city, there's a real estate office that stores all the deed documents that marks the latitudes and longitudes from the surveyors. All that data would have to be NFTified, which isn't that hard to do because it's also already on web servers, centralized web servers, and it seems to work fine. But thanks for answering that, Phil. Thank you, Snowman, for the question. You got NFT your house first. That's correct. There was one other big point you were going to hit on today. We've been going 36 minutes. We'll be wrapping up here in about 5 or 10 minutes. So if you got any questions, let us know in the chat. And the last part was about Empower, or was there another subject as well? Because you're co-founder of Empower.
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting that the last question was around houses because kind of segues nicely into what we're doing at Empower. So you've had some of the Empower team on before. You had one of our partners, Casa Real from Mozambique, with Richard, and they kind of talked about what the problem is that we're trying to solve with Empower. And as they described, it's around affordable housing in Africa. And the lack of being able to get financing because of, they don't have land titles, or they don't have secure income, or they don't have, recognizable income. So there's a huge problem, which obviously people can go back and watch that video with that you did with the Empower team previously. What they didn't kind of touch on was how our NFT solution will help address that. So essentially, what we're wanting to do with our NFTs is we're targeting 3 types of people. Okay, so we want to make NFTs that are almost like collectibles. So people would be willing to pay for them for their collectible value. We want to target people who want to help people just purely because they want to help people in Africa. So almost like people donate to charities. And then we want to target people who are actually interested in investing and want to get a return. So the way that it would work is, say we've got a housing project in Mozambique, which is one of the first projects that we're doing at the moment. Say the housing project is $20,000 US. So we could sell 1,000 NFTs to to cover the cost of that. And what that will help do is actually fund the construction of the house. But what will happen then is the owner of the house will go through a lease to own process where they will actually pay rent back, and that rent will come back to the NFT owners. So the amount of money that they paid for their NFT will actually be returned over time. So that's great for the investor. They'll probably get more than their original investment. But we really want to target this as more of an impact, people who want to collect impactful NFTs. So at the moment, a lot of the collectible NFTs are things that people value for social reasons. I mean, Rick, you're probably old enough to remember physical baseball cards and basketball cards.
Yes.
They were collectibles. And so what gave them value? Why did somebody want this mint condition Michael Jordan and basketball card? It was just a piece of paper, but it had social value. So we want to kind of use that, and we want to hope that people want to have social value in having impact in people's lives in Africa. So you want to be able to collect the fact that you've had impact on people's lives. And so what these NFTs will do, we will actually have scores for different types of impact. So it might be, have you had an impact on a woman in Africa, or have you had impact on the community in Africa? Have you had environmental impact? Has the house that you've helped construct had an environmental impact as well? And so these different NFTs will have different scores. And so as money comes back from rent payments onto these NFTs, you might want to go, well, I want to boost my score. I want to improve the environmental score on my card. It's only got 3 out of 5 stars or something. So you could actually redirect some of that return back into the house and say, let's put some solar panels on the house, and so that score then goes up. And so we're going to build some gamification into the system so that people, might want to trade cards so that they can maybe get a set, I want to get, something with 5 stars in every country in Africa. And so by doing that, we're removing the desire for it just to be about getting a financial return. It's not just an investment for getting money back off people who are paying rent. Because that's, I think, the biggest problem at the moment is that while we can provide financing to people in Africa and their homes in Africa, if people are only interested in getting a return, and getting a 5, 10, 15, 20% return, then we're still making it difficult for those people on the ground. Now we've made it better because we've given them access to funding that is outside of the traditional banking system, and we've decentralized that funding approach. But we are still not fully exploiting, we're not exploitative as the banks, but we're not doing it in as generous a way as maybe if we were just to donate it. So,
okay. Thank you for the thorough explanation. And for viewers, if you want to reference some of the things that Phil was speaking of, we had an event, like a 12-hour podcast with the West Africa Decentralized Alliance over on the Digital Fortress YouTube channel. And there were folks who described they have builders on the ground. There are people on site actually building, such as the cyclone-resistant housing, right? Because you don't want to buy a house in a cyclone zone that's just going to, boom, get blown away. So they're doing the right things. They got people on the ground. That was great to hear. So the West Africa Decentralized Alliance video has more information on what Phil just described. Episode 11 was with the Empower team. And the Empower team is a member of the West Africa Decentralized Alliance group, right? As the overarching, or did I get that backwards? No, West Africa covers multiple teams. So
we're partnering with WADA. So
okay, partners.
Obviously we need people on the ground in different countries in Africa, and so obviously WADA are starting to build a network in different countries. So we partnered with them to help, I guess, build the community in the different African countries. So the person on the ground that you spoke to was Richard. He's from one of our other partners called Casa Real, and they're the ones building the cyclone-resistant housing in Mozambique. And if people go to the Empower website, we're starting to put some more photos from Mozambique up there around some of that housing that's being constructed now. And even we're starting to put some photos of some of the people as well, because it's not just about the housing for the people who don't have, affordable, quality housing. It's also about the job creation that, this industry creates as well. So as we can fund more and more housing construction, we're also helping people with jobs as well.
Yeah. My favorite part is this isn't some nebulous government entity. These are people on the ground making things happen who are on these podcasts, and me and you know them. We meet them. We talk with them on video conferences. So this is actual people on there. Check out the link down below. We got the empower.io website link down below. Check that out. While you're down there, smash the like button, smash that subscribe button, share this video with your friends and family and people that you know. Help me out on the metrics. And so there was one other bit that we can't really hit on it on this podcast. It's like a whole separate conversation, a whole separate podcast. So you, in addition to the NFTs, are you building an Empower token? You have one of those coming up online.
So obviously the main part of the project at the moment is we're building community and partners. So that's the phase that we're in right now. Okay. At some point we will be doing a token sale because the Empower platform will require its own token to be able to transfer value from all these different places around the world. So we're about to release a video that describes that Empower token and how it will be used on the platform, so that people can try to get a better understanding. The white paper on our website is, as most white papers are, quite dense and it takes a lot of reading. So we're starting to put material out now that simplifies that in small little videos that just explain the concepts from the white paper in an easy to understand way.
Okay. So in the future, as the Empower tokenomics start to solidify and you guys are getting that all sorted out, maybe we could do another podcast if you're willing to come back, or if one of your financial experts on your team want to come on and talk to folks about how it works. That'd be great. That way it can kind of like boil down the dense white paper. They're great for reference, but people do like to hear a conversation about how it's used, and then they can have the opportunity to ask questions. So you want to do that, Phil? Maybe we'll hit up another podcast in the coming months as things start to come together.
Yeah, okay. Look, I mean, as the Empower project evolves more and more, there's going to be more and more to talk about. And as you said, we'll need a whole podcast to talk about that.
Yeah, we had to touch on that before the podcast. That would be, wow, that would be a whole nother podcast. So we'll do that again in the future. Phil, I would like to give you the final parting words for the viewers here today. Is there anything any information you'd like to put out in addition to voting for Fund 4 closes out tomorrow, and you have NFT DAO on there, and you have the DART project on Project Catalyst Fund 4. Anything else?
So the DARP, so the Decentralized Address Resolution Protocol, DARP, that's in Fund 4, so that closes tomorrow. The NFT DAO industry standards, so joining the Interwork Alliance, that's in Fund 5. I think that's under the metadata challenge, because obviously it falls nicely into metadata standards in that regard. And yeah, other than that, there's lots of contact information on the DARP protocol proposal. I've got my Twitter and my Telegram, so if people want to reach out and just ask me any questions, then feel free.
All right. Well, thank you, Phil, for that. Thank you for coming on Cardano Live. Everyone appreciates you coming out here, fighting a good fight. Keep going forward, sir. You're doing a good job, man. All right, everybody, take care. Have a great day and have a good night over there on the other side of the planet, Phil.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.